Good afternoon. Welcome to another wonderful episode of your favorite office hours, MS National Office Hours. Today is September 6th, 2024. Today we have a spectacular host of guests for you. But first, let me introduce your magnificent hosts.
Hey, everybody, I'm Stephanie Stevens.
And I'm Andrea Sangrio. And I'm going to hand it off to Charles Rice and team to tell us a little bit more about AI portals. Oh, did we promote
Thanks,
them?
Andrea. I was in the middle of asking Copilot to draw me a photorealistic picture of someone cutting butter with a chainsaw, but I guess I'll stop doing that.
Charles, let me make you a presenter really quickly. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I think I got it.
Okay.
And I'm assuming we should be able to take control too, right? From Charles, MJ, and myself.
You got it.
Yeah, perfect.
We've just promoted you guys, so you should be all good to go. I'm just grabbing MJ.
Promotion, yay.
It's good. We wanted this slide to sink in for a little while, so while we wait for MJ to get a promotion, everyone take this in.
Okay, you are now elite employees. Ready?
All right.
Ready to go.
All right, everybody. Let's see. Thanks for joining today. My name is Charles Rice. I'm a principal AI specialist based out of Austin. I saw Marge Knox on the call earlier. Hey, Mox, hook 'em. We're looking forward to this Saturday's game. Last couple of years, I've been heads down, focused on generative AI. I've seen everybody doing everything in the country, covering coast to coast, literally Harvard to Stanford and everybody in between. And I'm here with my colleagues, Arnab and MJ. Arnab, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, nice to meet you all. I'm Arnab Banerjee. I'm a director of customer success for Azure OpenAI. I get to work with Charles, MJ, and everybody on this call on a daily basis. And we've been, like Charles mentioned, knee deep in the whole crazy world of Gen AI. In my role, I have the unique privilege of running a AI pod, which is comprised of some really talented cloud solution architects. And what we do is we work with customers on their POCs related to Azure OpenAI, kind of make that real and go through all of the whole process of taking that POC all the way to production. MJ?
Hi, folks. It's good to be with you today. I'm your AI Innovation Officer sitting in the office of the CTO. I focus in on how to ensure AI recipes are reliable and use at scale, as well as helping leaders understand the impact of AI for their organizations and those that they serve. Looking forward to our talk today.
Thank you.
So just getting us started, this is a very interesting survey. If you haven't seen it yet, this is the Microsoft Work Trends Index and a number from our 2024 survey. It's a survey that's conducted across 31 countries, over 31,000 people, and billions of signals coming in from LinkedIn and M365. And this particular stat is that 78% of employees are bringing their own AI tools to work. Now, this not only impacts people at work, but also students who will soon be at work. And if I was a CIO today and had to work with my Chief Information Security Officer, I would probably be petrified by this number. But what it says to me is speaks really to what we've been going through over the last couple of decades, where all of us have a free email, we all have a free social media accounts, and we've been accustomed to trading our own privacy for productivity for some time. Now, over the last 20 years that I've been working in these large organizations, I haven't seen people in an organization trade organizational privacy for productivity, but that's what we are seeing now. And it's something to really carefully consider as we move forward into this age of generative AI in an organizational setting.
So as MJ said, nearly 80% of the workspace are bringing or using AI somewhere in their lives, professional lives. I think being in education, I think we can all probably agree that that number is probably higher in education now. I heard a lot of the conversation last half hour was predominantly about Copilot and AI and doing some things here and there. Everyone by now has used GPT to do various things. And I think we could all agree probably that chatbots these days are table stakes. So ChatGPT changed the world overnight. And now your community as education institutions demands chatbots to do a few things like reduce inefficiency, enrich learning, accelerate research, but probably most importantly, as educators or as folks that support educators and education institutes, improve student success. One of the examples all three of us actually worked on last summer and fall and continue to work on was the University of Michigan's implementation of Azure OpenAI and what they call Maisie. And to give you some stats, as you can see on the screen, it's become quite prolific in Ann Arbor. So the Ann Arbor is about 100,000 people, I think, on campus all up. They have about 30,000 or about a third of them using Maisie every single day, pushing about 400 million tokens per day, would not to get into that, and about 150 API toolkits on campus. But the big number I'm wanting to see is sort of in the middle there, over 3,000 Maisie projects. You can think of Maisie projects as individual chatbots on a specific set of data, whether it's a research project or a tutor bot or a departmental staff bot to do something, right? But again, focusing more on that last bullet point on improving student success, what Ann Arbor, what University of Michigan has seen, sort of anecdotally still, is currently being researched, is that students who use generative AI in their classrooms via Maisie have seen their grades improve by upwards of 7%. In a lot of cases, that's represented almost an entire grade point level improvement. So quite significant impact, not only like scholastically, academically on these students' lives, but obviously as academics improve for a student, their entire lives improve. So a huge impact by making these tools easy to use and allowing them to proliferate across campus. But chatbots are also complex. Right, Arnab.
You want me to take over, Charles?
Yes, sir. Please do.
Yeah, so, I always love the University of Michigan story that Charles just described because one of two things. One was, obviously, as an early adopter, they took that plunge, they made a big bet, and they rolled out a set of tools, AI tools across campus. What happened as a result of that, though, is when, as a result of kind of the PR and when people kind of got an understanding of what that Maisie product line is, which is really democratizing AI at the edges, where any student, any researcher, any faculty member can go in and create a Maisie of their own, which is your own data set, your own use case, and have a chat experience over it. All the institutions that we then started talking to said, we want that. We want that right now. What was interesting as a result of that, though, is when we got into the conversation of what it took for University of Michigan to stand that solution up, we started to get into some of the nitty-gritties of these chatbot solutions, right? And the really baseline understanding of this is it's pretty simple to spin up some of these demos. If you're doing a quick POC, we have platforms and tools within the Azure AI ecosystem where you can kind of point and click and take PDFs and design something. But when you try to move that to production, we can't forget the fact that we're still building an enterprise application that has to be rolled out, aligned with all of our security, privacy controls. What about the networking and infrastructure? What's the HADR? So none of these types of concerns go away just because we're developing an intelligent app, right? So this kind of diffuses a little bit of that initial enthusiasm that this is exciting, let's go ahead and do this. And they're like, oh, well, how do we do chargeback? All these millions of tokens being consumed, how do we ensure that we can allocate that back to Department A versus Department B, because their usages could be a lot different, right? And just as an example of what complexity may look like, in order to kind of the entry point into something like Azure OpenAI, which is a really powerful platform in itself for what it does when you're building custom copilots. As an essential prereq to doing that, you need what's called an Azure Enterprise Landing Zone. Now, I'm sure a lot of folks on the call, especially on the Azure side, either have a landing zone in place or are familiar at least with the term. I'm sure it has come up in some conversations. But this is the prereq, right? Meaning that I need to, in the context of my environment, stand up this Azure AI specific landing zone that's well architected. I have to take care of the security, networking, privacy controls, the compliance posture, especially in a healthcare setting. I do care about HIPAA, right? How do I ensure load balancing across the Azure OpenAI endpoints and a whole bunch of other things? And that's the prereq. And then when I have this stood up, when I go to build my custom copilot, I'm actually looking at some of these Lego blocks. Now, these are all PaaS solutions, right? They're not like hardcore infrastructure as a service. So all these different components that you're seeing that form the essence of a custom copilot are easy to spin up and skill up on. However, that said, as you can imagine, this takes a little bit of time and skilling and awareness and practice to be able to stand this up. So in our conversations with all of our customers in the past few months or so, Charles, MJ, and a lot of our team members, we were thinking of what's the easy button for this? Because there are definitely a lot of use cases that lend itself well to Azure OpenAI. But if every customer has to take this initial pain, it reduces the time to, it greatly increases the time to value, right? And that's where we started working with a lot of partners, and we brought partners onto the table and said, hey, what can we do to really kind of abstract away some of this complexity? And these are examples of the current partners with some great solutions in place. I believe Zamo has implemented their solution in at the California State University. Spyglass is another partner. They've implemented their kind of enterprise chat GPT-like solution at Princeton. Soliance recently implemented something at Yale. And finally, CloudForce have a solution called Nebula One. They have multiple customers, but one that we highly recommend you check out, a recording that we have on Azure Hour, which is with UCLA. And their CIO came on to that show and basically talked through how it really helped them go from zero to hero in Gen AI in less than 4 to 6 weeks or less, right? So that's really powerful. And what really is, how do we think about these partner solutions? They're turnkey solution accelerators. So all that complexity that we just saw, that's still there, but it's being packaged up by these partners. And when they deploy these chat solutions into your secure environment, they're bringing all those Lego blocks snapped to Microsoft well-architected framework, right? So you don't have to write that line of code. And that's really the true value is how quickly can I AI enable my institution without a heavy lift? So without further ado, and Charles and MJ, anything else that you wanted to add over here before we maybe jump into a quick demo using maybe Nebula One today?
The only thing I would add, Arnav, is just the context difference between personal productivity with a personal productivity tool and organizational AI. They are different, not just technically, but culturally. And so as you folks are watching some of the demos today and getting a sense, like an intuitive sense of where all this is going, just have that in mind, that your personal productivity and organizational productivity overlap, but they're not the same thing.
Great point. Charles, any words of wisdom before we jump into a quick demo?
I don't think so, Arnav. Let's take it away.
Okay.
See it in action.
And just to for just to make sure everybody understands, we'll be demoing the Nebula One solution here on this call. However, this is not necessarily an endorsement or preference for any particular partner, right? We want to make that really clear because I think, as you've seen all the examples that we cited, all of these partners have very capable solutions in the space. And we can definitely dive into, if you're interested, once you get a chance to see the demo, we can dive into deeper kind of solutioning across what might be a better fit for your institution, depending upon your use cases. So let me stop sharing, and I'm going to go into demo mode. All right.
If there's any questions while Arnab is sharing, I'm paying attention to the chat. Happy to answer them. Perfect.
Thanks, Charles. So what you should be seeing here is I'm no longer Arnab, the guy who works at Microsoft. I'm a student, and I'm trying to plan out my semester. And Contoso University, where I've enrolled, has 16 pages of this amazing undergraduate course catalog. And normally, I'd have to go through this, painstakingly understand all of the courses, the degree requirements, the professors I don't want to take, and kind of figure out that process, right? So thankfully, my institution, Contoso University, has given me access to Contoso's internal ChatGPT-like portal. So I can go there, log in, and I can go directly to my student semester planner, where my institution has made this course catalog available for me and everybody else who's majoring in this particular topic. So I can come in here and right away just start asking questions on that data. Let's see how it does on this one. So it comes back and tells me who is teaching that course. I can perhaps ask a follow-up question. What time is the course offered? And notice that this is conversational in nature, so it retains context of the previous question. So it knows what I'm referring to when I say is, right? It's also including links to the course catalog. It gives me the opportunity as the end user to validate the output, because as we all know, this is the new thing that we all have to get used to, is validating output of the AI system. Let me ask another follow-up question. This will be a little more out of like what a traditional chatbot might be able to handle, which is, I want it to suggest some courses that can help me maybe understand how statistics applies to biomedical research. And you can see that it's coming back with some course recommendations. And once again, it's giving me citations. Now, what I can also do is I can use this course catalog and ask it to just recommend a semester schedule for me. Now, I may have come up with an interesting prompt, and I don't want to have to come back and try to remember that. So I have this useful feature here where I've stored a prior prompt that I'd come up with, so I don't have to actually type it all out again. So I can just click on this and submit this. And all I'm asking Contoso GPT is, hey, I want to register about 10 credits. I don't want courses that are offered on Tuesday because maybe those are the days I work on campus. And make sure your recommendations factor in my course prerequisites. So it comes back and gives me some course recommendations, and it gives me the total credits, what days I have the courses, and the list of all of the courses, right? So you can immediately see how powerful a solution like this is this is one Maisie, right? If you go back to the University of Michigan Maisie product, this is one Maisie. They have 3,000 of these because it's innovation at the edges. Everybody in the institution now can come in here and design these systems in 15 to 30 minutes or less. I want to transition over to Charles so that Charles can show you another use case and also maybe do a quick walkthrough of some of the magic behind the scenes of what's happening. Charles, if you want to take control.
I do, but before I do, I want everyone to sort of notice that this interface looks familiar. It looks familiar on purpose. This is effectively mimicking ChatGPT, right? For being transparent, because that's what everybody knows and what's familiar with. So the idea is there's zero learning curve. And maybe this demo is boring because you've already done this yourselves via ChatGPT. The difference is
great if it is.
exactly. The difference is this is running in your private Azure environment under your lock and key in your networking with your own encryption keys, and the data never leaves your environment. That's the big difference. It's also paying for infrastructure rather than paying a per user per month fee, right? So economically and sort of privacy and security wise, it's a compelling solution. All of the partner solutions are, but this interface is meant to be boring because that's what everybody is used to. But the backend stuff is sort of where the special stuff comes in.
Right, absolutely. So and while you're taking over, Charles, if you remember the two slides on complexity that we showed, the whole landing zone and the custom Copilot architecture, this solution is essentially that, but without, as an institution, you having to write a single line of code to get value out of it. Over to you, Charles.
Thanks, Arnab. So again, same environment, different theme. I'm no longer Contoso University. I'm just a boring monotone or monocolor Microsoft theme, just because this is themable. Different data sets though. So Arnab was doing student planner. I'm going to do NIH GPT. So I work with a ton of researchers all over the country, as does Arnab, as does MJ. And a big part of research is writing grants to fund research, right? So instead of having to spend time understanding what General Form H is, which is a 321-page PDF that the NIH publishes every year or every couple of years, I created a GPT effectively on top of General Form H, and I can do things like, what are the top 5 things I should know about writing NIH grants? And pray to the demo gods and have it work. And just like Arnab showed you can have something that's specific to your university. Now, this is something specific to NIH grant writing for researchers, right? So there's scholastic academic example, and now this is more research focused. And as a researcher, I could also then, or as a PI, rather, I can upload my grant proposal and say, hey, this is my grant proposal. Compare this against the NIH's grant writing guidelines and my institution's own grant writing guidelines. What am I missing? Well, to sort of increase the propensity of getting those grants approved and funded. But to take you to out of the boring side, out of the front end that hopefully your community of users will use, to the back end where the special stuff is, I'm going to click on my name down here on the bottom left and go to management. And you see the experience has changed back in Contoso because that's the default brand. But this is where all of the admin stuff happens. And if you have appropriate roles, like a research, for example, the researcher can come in here and also do stuff like scope down stuff. I'm a super admin here, a root user. So as a root user, I can see complete utilization of the system, including tokens, because tokens equals dollars, which systems are being used, how they're being used, all that stuff. I can go into users and invite people into this environment. You can see lots of folks from Microsoft here. I can go into roles and create role-based access control roles to allow my users to do things. So I can go to new user. I can create, I don't know, national office hours role, for example, and very granularly define what the national office hours role is able to do. Hit create. I'm not going to do it, but hit create, and then have that role then be assignable to my users and to my chat access policy. So eventually I'm going to get into creating a GPT system, but this is sort of building up there. So chat access policies is a policy that defines what someone can do within what Nebula One calls a GPT system. So allow all public users to do everything. So public facing, picking on March, utexas.edu, put this on utexas.edu and have a chatbot that talks about enrollment or talks about financial aid or talks about whatever it is that, parking, whatever it could be, since these are LLMs, right? It's sort of open-ended conversations. Allow only authenticated users, demo admins. I could also, sorry, was there a question? I could also create a new chat access policy, and I can say research group 1 access policy, right? So now, and I can add a specific group here. I don't have any groups created, but hit create. And now this is a chat access policy for only the people in the group that I assigned to the chat access policy to. And if I go up on the left-hand side navigation, go to brands, I can come in here and create my own brand. It's super important as a higher ed institution or a K-12 institution to be able to skin any of these systems to your school's colors, your logos, your AMCs, whatever it is. You saw the Contoso University one. If you know anything about CSS or HTML, this should be super familiar for you, right? This is just, JPEGs or pings, maybe GIFs, and some hex values for colors. And that's it. That's as simple as it could possibly be to create a brand, including things like Contoso GPT, right? That's my chatbot's name, and this is my school's avatar. As a professor, I could create my course's own GPT, have my course's own brand and colors. Obviously, I'd probably still use the school's logo, but maybe have MIS whatever as a chatbot name or in the logo or something somewhere there. Then I go into chat access policies. Super important. Chat access policies tells the users how they should use your system, right? So Contoso University's AI guidelines are how Contoso University as a whole says you should use Contoso GPT. And even more importantly, you can optionally require your users to consent to the chat access policy. So you as a professor creating a tutor bot or a chatbot for your course can require your students to say, yes, I agree to these T's and C's, Professor Rice. I will not use this to cheat or do anything I shouldn't be doing that you don't want me to do based on the T's and C's, right? So I've created a chat access policy. I created a brand. I've created a guideline. I'm going to go into data sources. This is where you can associate different sets of data together as a data source. So if I go into Contoso course catalog, for example, I can click on files. And I can see there's Arnab's 2023 courses PDF that he showed you all earlier today. All the back-end stuff associating it with a vector database, storage endpoint, all that stuff handled for you behind the scene. Hit save, and now I have an additional object called a data source. Now, to get to the real magic, I can go to GPT systems. And remember, anyone with the appropriate permission can do this, including a faculty member, including a TA, including a researcher, staff member, anyone that you provide the permissions to. I can go to new GPT system. I can create a system called National Office Hours GPT, for example, associate it with a brand, Contoso University, a model, a guideline, arbitrary guideline, write a powerful system prompt, hit associated with chat access policy, hit create system.
And Charles, I know we have 3 minutes left, so we want to see if we can also,
I'll back off, but hopefully you saw how easy it was to create a system, and now I'd be able to come in here and chat with it. Anyways, so for the 2.5 minutes we have remaining, are there any questions?
There's got to be some. I know there were some questions in the chat, Charles, while you were demoing, and I think I did respond to at least one of them. But if we haven't gotten to your question, please feel free to come off of mute and ask Charles and MJ.
Yeah, that's a good question in the chat is pay-per licensing and pay-per usage. So the licensing is going to vary depending on which partner you go with. Different partners have different licensing terms. But on the back-end stuff, all the Azure stuff is going to cost the same, right? Whether you have one or it's just going to multiply depending on how many you have.
Specifically around the solution that we demoed today, that one doesn't have any specific licensing requirements, but some of the other partners may have a different kind of model. So.
I want to just call out. Well, I just wanted to call out quickly that Chris's comment in the chat is actually a super interesting one, right? So I also am of a generation where, you earn it by blood, sweat, and tears. And so there is a whole population of people who will, even if in jest partially, believe that there is value in the process, right? I don't discount that, but what I really would prefer as a faculty member and as someone who is accepting the next generation into my colleague ranks is that we try to condition folks to use that power in their brain for things that are much more creation driven, that advance us all forward, versus leafing through the University of Toledo course catalog that I had to leaf through. So I don't discount that there is value in the energy and effort that it takes to figure things out. I think it's about taking that human capital and energy and effort and putting it to something else, right? And that's really, that is the conundrum or the opportunity of AI whole up, right? It's really to think about not to replace the human, but to specialize the human in ways that we've not been able to do before because we've been hung up on these rote processes that take our bandwidth. So I think it's a really good discussion point, and I think we could probably wrap for today by just saying this paints a picture and a possibility that many of us probably had not considered until this session. So I want to just say thanks to Charles and Arnab and MJ for giving us a vision of something that's possible and yet to come at many institutions.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely. Always great to have you. You are all welcome back anytime. I think I fixed the form so that you can easily let us know if you want more from this team, and we'll work to get in touch with you following this. Any final thoughts or words, team?
No, razzle dazzle. Thanks so much. And team, we'll see you next week for another awesome episode of MS Office Hours. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.